Hey guys, tonight we're going back in time. Not to a king's palace or an ancient battlefield, but to a quiet American neighborhood sometime in 1968. You're home, maybe just out of high school, maybe working a part-time job at the gas station, maybe playing guitar in a garage band that never quite learned to tune properly. The air smells like fresh-cut grass. Someone's dad is barbecuing in the distance, and the world feels, more or less, normal. And then you check the mailbox. There it is. A white envelope with your full name printed dead center and the cold, impersonal stamp of the Selective Service System hovering like a ghost above it. Yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't open it right away. The envelope feels heavier than it should. Not in ounces, no. The paper is thin, government issue, practically see-through. But emotionally, it weighs like lead. Like the kind of lead that flies through humid jungles halfway across the world. Inside, it's not even a full sentence. Just a number, 1A. You've been classified as available for unrestricted military service. A couple of other paragraphs dance around the word drafted, but that's the heart of it. You're going to Vietnam. You try to laugh it off. Maybe this is a mistake. You weren't even that good at dodgeball. You're nearsighted. You have asthma. Or was that just spring allergies? And didn't your cousin Barry get out of it by claiming he was allergic to polyester? But no, this isn't going away. You keep rereading it, like maybe one of the times it'll magically say you want toaster instead. Spoiler, it never does. The reality of the draft in the late 1960s is this. Unless you're in college, have a deferment, or lucked out in the lottery, which wouldn't kick in until December 1969, Uncle Sam can pluck you like a daisy. Historians still argue whether the draft targeted working class and minority men more aggressively, but one thing's for sure. The rich found more ways out. Your mom cries when you tell her. Your dad tries to act proud, says things like serving your country and becoming a man, but you see his lip twitch, just slightly. That's not pride. That's fear with a mustache. That night, you don't sleep. Every sound outside, a car passing, a dog barking, a wind chime, feels louder, more urgent. Like time is speeding up, knowing what's coming. Your friends try to keep things normal. You go to a diner, maybe catch a drive-in movie, maybe sit on the hood of someone's car and stare at the stars. You all talk about it in half jokes. One guy says, "At least you'll lose your virginity to a mosquito." Another offers to break your leg. He's only half kidding. And yet, there's something strange, a tiny flicker buried deep. Not excitement, exactly, but curiosity. What's it really like over there? Is it as bad as they say? Will you come back changed? Will you come back at all? You look around at your room. The posters, the records, the awkward school photos, the notes from that girl you liked but never told. Suddenly, it all feels distant, like you're already leaving. Fringe fact. One unlucky draftee in 1967 got his notice on his wedding day. He thought it was a prank, until the FBI called him 3 days later asking why he hadn't reported yet. You report to your local draft board office 2 weeks later. The building looks like every DMV ever built. Beige, bureaucratic, and slightly humid. Other guys your age sit slouched in plastic chairs. A few have that glazed, whatever look. Others look like they've already aged 5 years overnight. You fill out forms. You get a number pinned to your shirt. You get asked if you've ever considered communism or if you've ever passed out during loud noises. Then someone says your name, and that's it. You're in the system now. The bus that picks you up smells like mildew and chewing gum. It rattles as it drives out of town, past the familiar gas station, the school, the diner. A few people on the sidewalk look at the bus. A few don't, but no one waves. Your seatmate's name is Greg. He's from Iowa. Talks fast. Wears a denim jacket with a patch that says "Peace, man," which, let's be real, is not going to survive the week. "I heard they shave your head first thing," he says. You don't answer. You're watching the trees blur past. They look like they're waving goodbye. And then something strange happens. You feel calm. Not peaceful, but surrendered. You're on the conveyor belt now. Might as well see where it goes. Greg offers you half a candy bar. You take it. It tastes like chocolate, but all you can think about is the date on your letter. That's when it really sinks in. You're not just going to war. You're becoming a number in someone else's war. A piece on a board game you didn't sign up to play. Historians still argue whether the draft helped or hurt the war effort, whether it brought in needed manpower or just disillusioned an entire generation. But in that moment, none of that matters. You're not thinking about geopolitics. You're wondering what kind of boots you'll get and if they'll give you enough socks. By the time the bus pulls into the intake center, it's already getting dark. A guard barks instructions. Greg laughs under his breath. You both step out and into a future you didn't choose. And that's how it starts. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like a hive of angry hornets as you're herded into a gray government building that smells faintly of industrial soap, paper forms, and leftover hot dogs. Welcome to the Military Entrance Processing Station, or MEPS for short, a bureaucrat of purgatory where hopeful patriotism goes to wait in line. You and about 50 other young men shuffle inside, single file. It's eerily quiet, except for the occasional cough or whisper. Even Greg from the bus has gone silent. Everyone's got the same look on their face, half bored, half nauseous. First stop, identity verification. A stern-looking man with a buzz cut and a clipboard calls your name. You say here, and he nods like it's the least interesting thing that's happened to him all day. You hand over your letter. He barely glances at it before motioning for you to move forward. And then you wait, and wait. You've never seen so many clipboards in your life, or pens chained to desks, or vending machines with only root beer left. Eventually, someone barks your name again. This time, it's for the physical. You're marched into a cramped hallway where you're told to strip down to your underwear. No privacy, no explanation, just strip. The floor is cold. The tile is cracked. You suddenly become hyper-aware of every awkward mole and freckle on your body. Then the exam begins. You're poked, prodded, and tapped with little rubber hammers. They check your reflexes, your hearing, your vision, your teeth. One guy coughs so hard during the hernia test that the doctor winces. Another fails the eye chart and gets pulled aside. When it's your turn, the doctor is a balding man with half-moon glasses who doesn't look up once. He says, "Turn your head and cough," like it's a voicemail greeting. He checks your feet, your knees, your spine. No names, no smiles. You pass. You don't know whether to feel proud or terrified. Fringe tidbit time. In 1967, a Michigan man brought his pet iguana to the physical and claimed it was his emotional support navigator. The doctors gave him a deferment, not because of the lizard, but because he had an untreated heart murmur. Next is the blood test. You hate needles. Not phobic, just respectfully wary. A burly nurse ties a rubber band around your arm and tells you not to flinch. You flinch anyway. She doesn't seem surprised. Then it's the psych eval. A clipboard full of multiple choice questions that make you question your own sanity. Do you hear voices when alone? Do you prefer fire to water? Would you feel remorse if you killed an enemy? You're not sure what the right answers are. You just circle the ones that feel the least likely to raise eyebrows. Probably a trick anyway. Everyone whispers that it doesn't matter, that they've already decided. Historians still argue whether the mental health screenings of drafted soldiers were sufficient or just a formality. Some say the system ignored warning signs. Others say it never had the resources to care. Then comes the worst part, the group shower. Yep, just like gym class, but with even more strangers, less soap, and zero dignity. You stand under the lukewarm water with 30 other guys, none of whom make eye contact. It's like some weird, wet, silent brotherhood of the unconsenting. Someone makes a joke about saving water by not rinsing. No one laughs. By the time you're handed a towel and motioned to get dressed, you feel about 10% cleaner and 90% more emotionally exfoliated. Back in the main room, you sit. Again, it's past lunch, and your stomach growls loud enough for the guy next to you to raise an eyebrow. He offers you a stick of gum. It tastes like rubber, but it's something. At around 3 p.m., an officer steps into the room with a stack of folders and starts calling names. Each name is followed by a branch of service. Some guys get Army, some get Navy, Some get Marines. Greg gets Air Force. He grins. Maybe I'll learn to fly. You hope so. Your name? Army. Of course. A kid next to you mutters, "There goes your knees." He's joking. Probably. Now comes the oath. You're lined up in a sterile hallway in front of a flag. The officer reads the words out loud. You repeat them like you're ordering fast food in a language you half remember from high school. To support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It doesn't feel real. More like a school assembly with more paperwork. But here's the thing. At that moment, something does shift. Maybe not patriotism, maybe not pride, but acceptance. A surrender, not to the government, but to the path ahead. It's happening. You're in it now. After the oath, they take you to a room with olive green duffel bags stacked like sandbags. One per man. Inside, 2 pairs of fatigues, a mess kit, a steel canteen, socks, never enough socks, and boots that look like they were designed to survive nuclear winter. You sling it over your shoulder and feel your spine compress. Someone behind you groans. Are we fighting tanks or carrying them? Light joke break. One recruit in Alabama tried to smuggle in a harmonica to lift morale. The drill sergeant lifted the harmonica, then stepped on it. Outside, the sun is setting. The air smells like hot pavement and cigarette smoke. You stand next to Greg and the others, all of you clutching your duffel bags like confused grocery shoppers waiting for a ride. And then the bus arrives. Different one this time. Olive drab, windows tinted. You climb aboard. The seat is stiff. The windows scratched. You watch as the buildings of your town start to fade away. Streetlights flicker on. A kid on a bike waves. Maybe at you, maybe just waving. Someone in the back hums a song softly. It's familiar. Maybe Bob Dylan. Maybe just your imagination. As the bus rolls forward, you rest your forehead against the cool glass. Your reflection stares back. Same eyes, same face. But everything else? Already changing. The bus rumbles for hours, eating up miles of highway like a sluggish iron caterpillar. The landscape changes. City turns to suburbs, suburbs to open fields, fields to fences and watchtowers. You're too tired to ask where you are, and no one bothers to tell you anyway. Eventually, it pulls to a stop at a place that looks like every prison in every movie you've ever seen, minus the razor wire. Long rectangular buildings, a gravel lot, a flagpole, and that same ever-present whiff of mildew and old coffee. This is it, your induction center. You and the other guys file off the bus like the world's saddest parade. There's no grand welcome, no trumpet blast. Just another man in uniform barking orders with the dead-eyed certainty of someone who's done this at least 700 times before. Fall in, bags on the yellow line, eyes forward. Nobody moves unless I tell you. You fall in. You start to notice something weird. Everyone around you is younger than they seemed on the bus. Maybe it's the lighting. Maybe it's the shaved heads. Or maybe it's just the growing realization that none of you have the first idea what's coming. And then it happens. The moment everyone talks about. The haircut. You're marched inside a squat concrete building that smells like wet tile and talcum powder. Inside, it's like an assembly line, but for dignity. Each station has a buzzing electric clipper, a barber who looks like he hasn't smiled since Eisenhower, and a pile of hair on the floor big enough to knit a new recruit. When it's your turn, you sit down in the chair. The barber doesn't ask what you want. He just grabs your head like he's wrangling a particularly stubborn turnip and goes to town. Buzz. Gone. You watch it fall. Chunk after chunk of the hair you've spent 17 years growing, styling, gelling, ignoring. The guy next to you tries to joke. At least lice won't like us anymore. The barber doesn't laugh. You don't either. In under 60 seconds, you're bald. Just like that. Fringe tidbit. In one rare case at Fort Polk, a barber accidentally gave a recruit a mohawk because the clippers jammed halfway through and had to be replaced. He spent 2 days with the style before anyone noticed. Next up, the uniform. You're led into a long room lined with shelves, bins, and tables covered in dull green. It's not glamorous. There's no triumphant moment of stepping into your new identity. Just a rushed flurry of being handed 2 small shirts, slightly itchy underwear, and pants that fit about as well as a wet newspaper. You try on your boots. They're stiff, heavy, and make you walk like a cartoon robot. Still, you stand a little straighter now. Not because you feel proud, because you have to. If you slouch, the boots trip you. Historians still argue whether the early indoctrination process served more to unify or dehumanize, but here's what you know. It definitely breaks you down fast. Now you're marched, again, into the open, onto a gravel yard where rows of bunkhouses sit like stale bread loaves. Your new home, a barracks. Inside, it's 24 metal frame beds, all bolted to the floor, all spaced evenly like sad little islands of personal space. You're assigned a bunk. You set your bag down. It makes a metallic thump. You sit, and for the first time since this started, there's no one yelling. No one pushing you along. Just the sound of guys unpacking, sighing, maybe muttering a quiet curse under their breath. Greg shows up beside you. Roommates again, he says with a grin. His buzzed head makes him look 10 years older and 5 years younger all at once. He smells like aftershave and fear. There's an awkwardness to it all, like the first day of school, but if school were a prep course for mortal danger. Then whistles. Drill sergeants storm in like a sudden thunderstorm. You don't even get their names. Just a barrage of instructions. Stand at attention. Speak when spoken to. You belong to the United States Army now. The guy across from you blinks too slowly. A sergeant gets in his face and screams so loud the whole room flinches. You got something in your ears, Private Sunflower? No one laughs. That night, lights go out at exactly 2,100 hours. 9 p.m. civilian time. No night light, no final snack, no bedtime story unless you count the guy whispering prayers 3 bunks down. You lie there, staring at the ceiling. It creaks every time someone shifts. The mattress is thin. The pillow's just decorative. The guy below you snores like a defective lawnmower. You try to sleep. Instead, your mind races. About the haircut, the boots, the oath, the word drafted. You wonder if this is how ancient soldiers felt. Romans, Spartans, maybe even Civil War draftees. Yanked from their lives, handed a weapon, and told to march. You don't feel brave. You feel like a kid who took the wrong bus and ended up in someone else's nightmare. And then you think of your mom, wondering if she cried again tonight, wondering if she folded your laundry just out of habit, wondering if she sat by the phone, even though she knows you can't call. Fringe historical fact. One 1968 recruit actually tried to mail himself home in a crate. He made it 2/3 of the way across the country before someone at the post office heard a sneeze. You smile just a little. Then the sadness rushes back in, like tidewater behind a sandcastle. You drift off, eventually, somewhere between fear and exhaustion. Your last thought before sleep. What if I don't make it past the first week? And then, a whistle blasts through the darkness. It's morning already. The whistle cuts through the pre-dawn stillness like a buzz saw through softwood. You're yanked from sleep, heart pounding, unsure where, or even who you are for half a second. Then it hits you. The barracks, the itchy blanket, the rhythmic snoring that suddenly stopped. Reality rushes in like cold water. On your feet. Move, move, move. A drill sergeant's voice bellows from outside. You scramble, slipping one leg into your fatigue pants while the other rebels. Around you, guys trip over boots, fumble belts, yank shirts backward. The air smells like sweat, dust, and a faint tang of industrial soap. You're outside within 2 minutes, standing in a lopsided formation on gravel under the bruised purple sky of early morning. Breath clouds float in the air like steam signals from broken machines. Look alive, ladies, the sergeant roars, pacing the line like a wolf inspecting sheep. Welcome to basic training, or, as I like to call it, 7 weeks in hell with stairs. Someone near you chuckles. Big mistake. The sergeant is there in an instant. Inches from the guy's face. Do you think this is funny, Private? Sir, no sir. Oh, it will be funny. To me. When you're crying after your 3rd push-up. Drop. The guy drops. So do the rest of you. That's the first lesson. Someone messes up, everyone pays. You push the gravel with your palms and taste dirt before the sun's even up. Welcome to the new normal. The first day is all bark, no breathing room. You're herded from one station to the next like sheep on a very disorganized conveyor belt. There's a safety briefing, spoiler, Everything is dangerous. A rundown of barracks rules. Spoiler. There are a lot. And something called initial entry training. That basically means learning how to stand, sit, walk, and breathe to Army specifications. You're taught to call your bunk a rack, your bathroom a latrine, and your sole government property. And the drill sergeants? They seem to thrive on breaking you down with Olympic-level sarcasm. Is that how you stand at attention, Private? Were you a scarecrow on vacation? You don't laugh. You don't blink. You try to disappear into your own boots. Around midday, you meet your main drill sergeant, Sergeant Devers. He's about 6'3", built like a vending machine full of rocks, and has a jawline you suspect was sculpted by a disgruntled Greek god. His voice is low and calm, which is somehow worse than the others who yell. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to be your dad. I'm here to train you so you don't die screaming in a rice paddy. That's the job. You want to cry? Do it when you're dead. You want to quit? Do it when you're drafted again. Otherwise, shut up, listen, and move. Greg whispers later, I think I love him. You do not respond. The physical stuff starts fast. You run. You sweat. You learn that your lungs have secret compartments just for pain. Push-ups? Hundreds. Sit-ups? Thousands. Something called the low crawl that leaves you picking pebbles out of your elbows. And don't forget the bear crawl, which is exactly what it sounds like, except bears don't throw up halfway through. One guy faints during jumping jacks. Another throws up in a bush during the run and keeps going. The sergeants just nod. That's the spirit. Fringe fact, one platoon in Fort Leonard would reportedly set an unofficial record in 1969 for the slowest mile run, 49 minutes, because someone dropped their rifle and the entire unit had to crab walk back to retrieve it. Every hour feels like 3. Every break lasts about 30 seconds. You begin to fantasize about beds, baths, and food that doesn't bounce when dropped. Ah yes, the food. The mess hall isn't bad exactly. It's just unimaginative. Beige eggs, gray meat, white bread. The holy trinity of military cuisine. And always chipped beef on toast. A dish so legendarily disliked, it earns the nickname SOS, which if you know, you know. Historians still argue whether military chow in the 1960s was nutritionally sufficient or barely edible filler. Most draftees just remember the smell. Still, after hours of running and shouting, you'd eat sawdust if it came with gravy. But the worst part? The constant correction. You tie your boots wrong, correction. You salute like a limp fish, correction. You breathe too loud during inspection, correction. And correction usually means push-ups, yelling, or if you're unlucky, the pit, a giant sand-filled arena where you're forced to do exercises until you start seeing stars shaped like Lyndon B. Johnson. You start to forget your first name. Everyone's just private. You all look alike. Bald, sweaty, slightly broken. And then, one day, you nail it. The formation, the turn, the salute. Perfect. The sergeant doesn't say good job, of course, but he also doesn't yell. And that feels like applause. Nights are weird. You're exhausted, sure, but also wired from adrenaline and muscle pain. You lie in your bunk staring at the ceiling, muscles twitching like they're trying to run drills without your permission. Guys start a bond in those hours. Stories are traded. Nicknames are born. Someone admits to crying during their first shower. No one mocks him. Greg admits he joined because he didn't get into art school. You say you were just unlucky with the draft. Someone else quietly says he volunteered. Everyone's quiet for a moment after that. By the end of the week, something shifts. You stand straighter. You react faster. You memorize commands like lyrics to a hit song. It's not that you're becoming a soldier. It's that you're becoming part of a machine. One where hesitation gets people killed. You still hate mornings. You still miss home. But now you wake before the whistle. You don't know it yet, but you've just passed the first test. And there are 19 more to go. You've only been in basic for about 10 days, but time feels warped. Days stretch out like tar. Nights flicker by like dying light bulbs. The outside world, your town, your bed, your mom's lasagna, is already fading into myth. What you've got now are boots, bruises, a bunk, and a bunch of equally miserable guys who somehow are starting to feel like family. It's strange how suffering makes friends out of strangers. Take Bobby, for instance. Loud, lanky kid from Chicago. He snores like a chainsaw and tells everyone he's partially descended from Vikings, which no one believes. On day 3, he got chewed out for calling Sergeant Deaver's bro, but when your canteen cap cracked during PT and you were practically drinking sand, Bobby handed you his without hesitation. No big speech, just, "You look like you're dying, bro." Then there's Ramos, quiet as a church mouse, but with a laugh that could blow doors off hinges. The first time he talked to you was during rifle disassembly. You were fumbling with the bolt, panicking under Sergeant Deaver's glare. Ramos didn't say a word, just leaned over, pointed, nodded. Saved you from a very public humiliation. Later that night, he shared a contraband peanut butter cup. You would have died for him right then and there. Even Doc, the scrawny guy from Vermont who once got lost in the latrine, find his place. Turns out he can fold clothes like origami and shine boots to mirror perfection. Now everyone bribes him with socks in exchange for uniform inspections. These guys, you'd never have spoken to them in the real world. You wouldn't have even noticed them. But now, in this green and gray universe of sweat and gravel, you're part of the same species. Private. And with brotherhood comes ritual. No one tells you this part. They train you to march, to fire, to field strip, and M14 blindfolded, sure. But they don't mention the weird little traditions that sprout up like mushrooms in the damp corners of soldier life. Take sock grenades. One guy, doesn't matter who starts it, rolls up a sweaty sock, sneaks up on someone half asleep, and whomp, direct hit to the face. Chaos erupts. Soon everyone's on high alert. Tensions escalate. Truces are made, broken, and renegotiated during lights out. By week 2, it becomes a game. If you can hit someone from 3 bunks away without waking Deavers, you earn a free favor. One guy manages it twice and gets 3 days' worth of extra rations bartered in return. Then there's the Midnight Latrine Opera. The acoustics in a latrine are amazing. Too amazing. One night, Ramos starts humming some Sinatra as he brushes his teeth, and before long, half the barracks joins in. Not well, not in tune, but with gusto. The drill sergeant hears it, storms in, and nearly explodes with rage. This ain't no USO show, you tone-deaf termites. But later, you swear you catch him humming Strangers in the Night while polishing his boots. The strangest part? These little jokes, pranks, and rituals, they're not just coping mechanisms. They're survival mechanisms. Because underneath the humor, everyone knows what's coming. Not just more push-ups, not just longer runs or sharper salutes. Vietnam. It's the silent third party in every conversation. No one talks about it directly, not yet, but it's always there, hovering like the scent of jungle wrought on a hot breeze. Historians still argue whether humor was an effective psychological defense or a thin mask over deep trauma. Probably both. You remember what your dad once said, something about how trench soldiers in World War I used to joke about dying in their sleep just to make it easier to close their eyes. Back then, you didn't understand. Now you do. Midway through week 3, you and the others are marched out to the obstacle course. Sergeant Deaver smiles, which is terrifying. This right here, gentlemen, is where boys turn into bulletproof men or corpses. Let's find out what you are. You climb. You crawl. You run through the mud like some prehistoric reptile learning to walk. There's rope ladders, tunnels, barbed wire. One guy slips off the wall and lands like a sack of potatoes. He's fine. Laughs it off. You don't. At the end of it, covered in grime and sweat and possibly raccoon poop. No one confirms this. The platoon collapses in the grass. Bobby says, "I think my spleen filed for divorce." Greg rolls over. "I didn't know I had a spleen." Ramos nods solemnly. "Mine moved to Mexico." You laugh until it hurts. And that's the moment it clicks. You are not alone. Whatever comes next, jungle, bullets, snakes with fangs the size of your thumbs, you've got these guys. They've got you. That night, someone sneaks in a smuggled harmonica. You don't know who. Doesn't matter. They start playing softly after lights out. Not a tune you recognize, just low, wandering notes. Gentle, broken things. No one stops them. No one dares. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, your arms limp and sore, your brain humming like a beehive in a bottle. And that music, simple, lonely, off-key, wraps around the whole barracks like a lullaby for lost boys. You fall asleep thinking about home, about the things you left behind, about the fact that even here, among mosquitoes and military-issued toilet paper, humanity somehow finds a way. You don't realize it at first, but it's happening. Slowly, methodically, like water shaping stone, you're being rewired. Not just your muscles, your posture, or your ability to yell, "Yes, drill sergeant," while doing push-ups in mud. No, it's deeper than that. You're starting to think like a soldier. This is the part they never advertise on the posters, the psychological renovations. Because basic training isn't just about conditioning your body to run 5 miles while carrying a rifle and a backpack that weighs more than your sense of mortality. It's about changing how you perceive the world. Take the marching drills. At first, you thought it was just about walking in sync. Left foot, right foot. Swing your arms. Look sharp. Whatever. But by the 3rd week, something shifts. You start to notice when someone's off. You flinch when they flinch. Your steps become part of a rhythm. 50 sets of boots striking dirt as one machine. You start to feel in your spine. There's a strange power in moving like that, in being a piece of something larger. Then there's the rifle training. That's when things get real. They call it your best friend, your wife, your lifeline. You're taught to carry it, clean it, disassemble and reassemble it in the dark, blindfolded, upside down, probably while being shouted at and covered in fire ants. Okay, not technically part of the training, but it happens. At first, it's just a heavy piece of metal. Cold, impersonal. But after days of instruction, after your hands memorize the grooves and trigger resistance, it becomes an extension of you, like a very dangerous prosthetic limb. Treat it like it's loaded even when it's not, says the range officer. Because someday, when it is loaded, that reflex might keep you alive. You believe him. You don't just hold the weapon anymore. You respect it. Still, you're not immune to jokes. Greg tapes googly eyes to the butt of his rifle. I call her Charlene, he says. We're going steady. Charlene gets confiscated immediately. By now, the indoctrination is layered into everything. It's in how you sit, always straight. It's in how you respond, always with the proper title. It's in how your brain starts calculating sight lines, distances, and exits even during lunch. They're teaching you to survive, yes, but they're also teaching you to compartmentalize, to shelve emotion, to analyze threat, to switch into on mode the moment someone yells incoming. And strangely, it's kind of working. One afternoon, a guy from another platoon trips during bayonet drills. The blade hits his leg, not deep but enough to bleed. You all freeze. Except you. You move. You press your towel to the wound, bark for help, keep him calm until the medics arrive. You didn't think. You just reacted. Sergeant Devers claps you on the shoulder. Good instincts, private. That feels like someone handed you a gold medal carved from silence. Later that week, you get your first lecture on why you're being trained this way. Not how to march, not how to aim, but why the Army wants you to learn it like breathing. Sergeant Devers stands in front of the platoon, arms behind his back. He doesn't yell, doesn't pace, just looks at you all quiet. War, he says, is not about muscle, not about bravery. It's about who panics first. He lets that sink in. If you panic, you die. If you hesitate, someone else dies. If your boots squeak too loud in the jungle, you all die. You all stare back at him, unmoving. That's why we break you down, he continues. That's why we drill until your bones beg for mercy. Not because we like watching you suffer, because we like watching you survive. Fringe fact. In 1968, a battalion sergeant at Fort Jackson invented a fake panic score system to identify which recruits were more likely to freeze under fire. It was unofficial, totally made up, but his platoon ended up with one of the lowest casualty rates in the war. Historians still argue whether these extreme psychological methods produced better soldiers or just more traumatized ones. The answer may depend on whether you made it home. And then come the combat simulations. They start small, flashbangs, fake rifles, smoke bombs. Then they escalate. Live fire overhead while you crawl under barbed wire. Screams piped through loudspeakers. Explosions timed to startle you. Orders barked in chaos. And you better follow them with zero hesitation. One guy freezes during a drill. just stands there. The sergeant charges him, yanks his helmet off, and screams so close their noses touch. You think the enemy's going to give you a do-over, Private? You think you'll get a second take when that mine goes off under your foot? The guy nods, lips trembling. That night, he cleans every rifle in the barracks. No one asks him to. It's all blurring together now. Sleep, drills, mess hall, fire drills, sweat, shouting, formation, scrub, run, collapse. The sergeants start using your names less and less. You're a unit now, a breathing organism. It should be terrifying. Instead, it's weirdly comforting. Because in this green-gray cocoon of structure and discipline, there are no questions anymore. Only actions. But here's the weirdest part. One morning, you wake up and it's cold. Not jumble hot. Not sweat on your ribcage hot. Just cool. Like a fall morning in a normal place. The barracks are still dim, and the world is still hard, but something in you shifts. You stand a little taller. Your boots go on faster. Your bunk is made with sharp corners. Not because someone will inspect it, but because you want it that way. And you realize they've done it. You're not the same kid who stepped off that bus, gripping your draft letter like a death sentence. You're a different creature now. Maybe not quite a soldier, but no longer just a civilian. And in the mirror, beneath the regulation haircut and the hollowed-out cheekbones, you see someone who might just make it out alive. If there's one thing you've learned about the Army by now, it's this. Just when you think you've found your rhythm, boom, they pull the rug out from under you and make you march 20 miles with it strapped to your back. Welcome to Field Training Exercise Week. FTX, they call it. You call it camping with trauma. You and the rest of the platoon are bussed out to a massive training range. Acres of tangled trees, rolling hills, and enough mosquitoes to populate a Stephen King novel. The air smells like wet pine needles, boot polish, and cold canned beans, which, unfortunately, you'll be eating a lot of. The moment you dismount, it begins. Get your gear and move like you've got somewhere to be, privates. Let's see if you can play soldier without mommy's mattress under your butt. So you move. You're carrying your rucksack, which feels like a portable refrigerator filled with bricks, socks, and broken dreams. It includes extra uniforms, which stay wet, an M14 rifle, which stays heavy, rations, which stay awful, and your helmet, which is the exact opposite of ventilated. It's not long before you're soaked through with sweat and already itchy from the high grass. And that's before you've even dug your foxhole. Because that's the first task, digging. Lots of digging. You're handed a collapsible entrenching tool, basically a shovel with commitment issues, and told to make yourself a nice little coffin. That's the joke. It's not that funny. For the next 3 hours, you dig into the stubborn earth until your arms ache and the blisters on your palms start to resemble tiny, angry marshmallows. Ramos ends up in a patch of rocks and ends up with a trench roughly the depth of a cereal bowl. Devers walks by, shakes his head, and mutters, "Guess you want to be buried in a shoebox." You try to laugh, but you're too tired. That night, you get your first taste of sleeping outside. Your foxhole is damp. The mosquitoes are having a reunion dinner on your neck, and your blanket smells like old soup. You try to wrap yourself in your poncho and ignore the grumbling of Greg's stomach as he mutters in his sleep. If I see one more can of lima beans, you're on fire watch duty, meaning you take turns staying awake while the others sleep, just in case of hostile engagement. Spoiler, there's no enemy, just your thoughts. You sit under a canvas of stars, listening to the frogs croak and the occasional distant shout from another squad. The world feels weirdly peaceful. And then it hits you. This is the closest thing you've had to quiet in weeks. The Army gives you no room for silence, not on the base. But out here in the woods, surrounded by sleeping soldiers and shadowed trees, it's just you and your breath, and your rifle, and your racing thoughts. You remember a letter your mom wrote. It came last week, just before FTX started, folded into a tiny envelope, smudged in one corner. She said your room still smelled like your socks, that the dog still checks the driveway every evening, that she made your favorite pie for your little brother's birthday, but he wouldn't eat it. Said it didn't taste right without you home. You folded the letter carefully and hid it inside your pack, tucked between a spare pair of socks and a box of Band-Aids. You haven't looked at it since. Now you think about it. You wonder if she was awake that night too, wondering where you were. wondering if you were cold, wondering if she could send you pie in a box. You hope not. The next day, combat drills. You're taught how to move under fire, sprint, drop, roll, return fire. It's like choreographed panic, and you do it over and over until your knees feel like gravel-filled balloons. One scenario involves moving across open ground under the sound of simulated machine gun fire. Real bullets shot overhead. You're told to keep your body flat and your head down, and if you lift your face even an inch, the sergeant will personally feed it to you in your next ration pack. There's something sickeningly real about hearing live fire zip above you. Suddenly, all the war movies and dramatic speeches evaporate, and you realize this is not pretend. Historians still debate whether live fire exercises were necessary or needlessly traumatic. But one thing's for sure, you never forget the sound of a bullet singing over your helmet. Greg cracks halfway through the crawl. He drops, belly down, breathing like he's drowning, eyes wide. Charlene's not built for this, he says, gripping his rifle. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because if you don't, you'll freeze too. Later that night, during fire watch, you both sit in the foxhole, passing a half-smashed candy bar between you. Do you think we're ready? Greg asks. You pause. No, you admit. And you both laugh again, quietly, into the night. The final night of FTX, it rains. Not a drizzle. A biblical downpour. Your foxhole becomes a bathtub. Your boots squelch. Your blanket weighs 5 pounds more. You consider sleeping standing up. The whole camp smells like mildew, wet canvas, and desperation. Bobby accidentally sleeps in a puddle and wakes up shrieking about leeches. There are no leeches, just his imagination and probably a frog. Devers walks the camp, checking holes. This is what Vietnam will feel like, he says. Only hotter, louder, and with people trying to kill you. Thanks, Sarge. Real comforting. Fringe fact. Some FTX camps in Georgia were so infested with fire ants that one platoon spent an entire drill walking in circles to avoid nests. They failed the exercise, but no one got bit. When the bus is going to pick you up, you're soaked, bruised, sleep-deprived, and somehow weirdly proud. Because you made it. You dug your own shelter. You endure the weather. You didn't shoot your foot off. Bonus. And even though you're exhausted, when Devers mutters, not bad for a bunch of city boys, you feel like you just graduated from secret school that no one ever applies to on purpose. Back at base, the hot shower feels like a religious experience. You scrub away the dirt, the grime, the swamp smell. But not the memories. You keep those. They become part of you now. By now, you've been in basic long enough that the phrase civilian life sounds like a fairy tale someone made up to comfort frightened recruits. You still remember flashes of it. Soda fountains, movie nights, the smell of laundry fresh out of the dryer. But it feels about as real as a unicorn in fatigues. Because now it's inspection season, and nothing, not trench foot, not live fire, not even Bobby snoring, prepares you for the psychological warfare that is a platoon-wide inspection. Here's how it works. Every square inch of your existence is now an active crime scene, and the drill sergeants are the forensic unit. They look for dust like it owes them money. If your locker isn't organized to within an inch of its life, that's 50 push-ups. Boots not shining bright enough to signal aircraft, that's another 50. Someone else's sock peeking from under a bunk. Doesn't matter who, everyone pays. It's part performance, part punishment, and part deeply surreal comedy. Greg actually irons his underwear. You catch Ramos polishing a coat hanger. Bobby tries to tape a motivational quote to the inside of his locker. Discipline is just choosing between what you want now and what you want most. Sergeant Devers reads it aloud like Shakespeare, then assigns him to scrub the latrines. What I want most, Devers says, is a private who knows how to shut up. You almost laugh. Almost. But there's a purpose behind the madness. That's the part they don't announce, but you start to get it. Because in Vietnam, a sloppy uniform can cost you more than points. A misplaced item can give away your position. A forgotten detail might be the difference between walking away and not. Historians still argue whether the U.S. military's obsession with order during the Vietnam War reflected practical necessity or institutional neurosis. Either way, it's burned into you now. You can fold a t-shirt into a perfect square using only muscle memory and spite. And then comes the marksmanship test. It's been looming in the background, like a final exam with bullets. If you don't pass, you don't move on. Simple as that. You're marched out to the range at dawn. The sky is still holding on at night like a blanket it doesn't want to let go of. The world smells like gun oil, dew, and nerves. The test is simple. Hit enough targets to qualify as a marksman. But the execution? Not so simple. Targets pop up at random distances, 50, 100, 200 yards. Some stay up for 2 seconds. Others play hard to get. Wind picks up. Sun glares off your sights. And just behind your shoulder, a drill sergeant breathes like a predator who skipped breakfast. You lie prone, cheek on the stock, breathing shallow. Exhale, squeeze. Your first shot misses. You feel it in your teeth. Second shot, bullseye. Third, miss. You start playing mind games with yourself. You try to remember everything the instructor said about sight alignment and trigger discipline. You try not to hear your own heartbeat pounding in your ears like a drum corps on caffeine. By the end of it, your hands are shaking. Greg throws up in a bush afterward. Ramos just sits cross-legged in the dirt and stares into space. Then, hours later, the results come in. You passed. Not top marks, not a sharpshooter, but enough. Enough to move on. Enough to fight. You don't know how to feel about that. That night, there's a rare moment of celebration. No official party. Just some unauthorized peanut butter crackers someone smuggled in, and a whisper chain of congratulations passed like contraband. It's the first time you realize how far you've come. The kid who showed up here wouldn't recognize the one, now doing 50 push-ups for fun, eating powdered eggs without complaint, or instinctively turning at every shout of at ease. You're still afraid, sure, but you've learned to walk with that fear tucked in your waistband. And now, they're preparing you for graduation. Yes, graduation, like high school, but with more screaming and fewer tuxedos. You're fitted for your classy uniform. That's the dress version. Stiff collar, sharp creases, heavy fabric that makes you feel like a kid trying on his dad's clothes. You catch yourself in the mirror. Short hair, clean shave, eyes that don't blink as much as they used to. Who is that guy? That's a soldier, even if you're still learning what that really means. Fringe tidbit. Some bases during the Vietnam era allowed you to mail photos home in your classy uniform before deployment. One recruit wrote, "My mom framed the photo and kissed it every morning before work." He returned 2 years later to find the glass worn with lipstick prints. Graduation day arrives fast. Rows of soldiers, polished boots, practice salutes. Parents in the stands, some sobbing, some beaming. You don't see yours. They couldn't make the trip. That's okay. You tell yourself it's okay. The commanding officer gives a speech. You barely hear it. Your thoughts are buzzing, skipping ahead to what comes after. Because this isn't the end. Not even close. It's the final page of the prologue. After this, you get your orders. Some guys are headed to Germany, others to training schools. A few get lucky with desk jobs stateside, but most get the jungle. And so do you. You get Vietnam. You open the envelope with trembling fingers. Greg peeks over your shoulder. He sees the destination. He doesn't speak. He just puts a hand on your shoulder and squeezes. You both stare ahead, eyes fixed on a future neither of you asked for, wearing a uniform stitched with uncertainty and seams lined in sweat. Orders in hand, backpack packed, boots laced tighter than your nerves. The time between graduation and deployment feels like an out-of-body experience. Like you're watching yourself walk through the last civilianish hours of your life from behind a fog window. You try to savor everything. The sound of a Coke fizzing open at the canteen. The sensation of your dog tags sticking to your chest on a hot day. The voice of Ramos try to learn Vietnamese from a pocket dictionary, mispronouncing hello as fire truck. But underneath all that, a growing pressure. A thudding, slow-burning dread that pulses just below your ribs like a heartbeat you don't control anymore. Vietnam is no longer just a word whispered in training. No longer a far-off place mentioned in news bulletins or yelled in political protests. Now it's a plane ticket, a date, a destination stamped in your orders. You're going, and not for spring break. The goodbyes are short, brutal, and messy. You're allowed one final phone call home. You wait in line behind a dozen other guys, all of you fidgeting, joking badly, try not to count down minutes. When it's your turn, you pick up the receiver in the booth and listen to the dial tone like it's an old friend. It rings. Your mom answers. She already knows. You can hear in her voice, tight, high-pitched, trying too hard to sound cheerful. She asks if you're warm, if you're eating, if you made any nice friends. You say yes, yes, and yes. You don't tell her about the guy who passed out during rifle drills, or the rumors about jungle diseases that eat your skin, or the sound your sergeant made when he said, "Most of you won't come back the same. If you come back at all." You keep it light. At the end, she says, "I'm proud of you." You don't know how to respond to that. So you say, "Love you," and hang up before your voice breaks. The airport is like purgatory in camouflage. You're flown out from base to a staging facility where troops from all over the country converge. It's a swirling mass of olive drab uniforms, duffel bags, shouting officers, paperwork, and hurry up and wait anxiety. The final processing is tedious. You're issued new dog tags in case the jungle eats the first set, malaria pills that look like chewable nightmares, and a passport you'll probably never use outside of this war. Your rifle is checked, rechecked, and then handed to you like a gift-wrap punchline. The plane itself isn't a commercial airliner. It's a military charter, all metal and function and noise. No in-flight movie. No peanuts. Just a cargo bay full of 20-year-olds trying to act like they're not scared out of their minds. The engines roar to life. You look around and see Greg asleep already, mouth open, one boot untied. Ramos is sketching something on the back of a ration label. A jungle scene with shadowed soldiers. The guy across from you grips a rosary, so tightly his knuckles go white. As the wheels lift off, someone mutters, "Too late to turn back now." Nobody disagrees. The flight takes forever. Or maybe it's 30 seconds. Time is shredded by the altitude. Some try to sleep. Others play cards. Most just stare at the floor, or the ceiling, or the gun resting between their knees. At one point, a sergeant walks the aisle and barks, "Listen up. You'll be landing at Tan Son Hut Air Base, just outside of Saigon. From there, you'll be assigned to your units and moved into staging. No one acts like a tourist. No one wanders. Got it." You all nod. But it doesn't really hit you until the door opens on the tarmac. And Vietnam hits you back. It's not just the heat, though that's the first thing you feel. It slaps your lungs like a boiling towel. Wet, thick, heavy, like walking into a sauna with bad intentions. It's not just the smell, though that's the second. A layered fog of diesel exhaust, fish sauce, jungle rot, body odor, gun oil, and something floral you can't identify. The kind of smell that moves in and stays for dinner. It's everything at once. The noise, shouting in English, shouting in Vietnamese, shouting over radios. Helicopters slicing the sky like insects on a mission. The blur of movement, soldiers, civilians, jeeps, bicycles, chickens, dogs. All in one scene that looks like someone fed a postcard into a blender. This isn't America's war movie version of Vietnam. This is Vietnam. Unfiltered, alive, unapologetic, and you're in it. You're herded off the plane, dazed, dripping, clutching your gear like it's a lifeline. A sergeant with a clipboard checks your name, assigns you to a temporary holding barracks. It's a low-slung structure with mosquito screens that don't really work and cots spaced close enough that you can hear your neighbor snore in stereo. Inside, a wall fan turns like it's doing you a personal favor. The floor is stained. The air is always damp. You sleep with one eye open, hand on your rifle. Because even here, just hours off the plane, the war is not far. That first night, you lie awake listening. To the distant thump of artillery. To the whine of insects. To the cough of a man dreaming too hard. To the silence between sounds. The one you suspect holds more danger than the noise ever could. Fringe tidbit. Some draftees wrote letters home on the first night, just in case they didn't make it to morning. They weren't allowed to say much, but many included the phrase, "I'm here, I'm okay, and I'm thinking of you." You don't write one yet. You're not sure what to say. The next morning, you receive your unit assignment. The real thing. Greg gets sent to an artillery battery up north. Ramos to a combat engineering team operating along the Mekong. You? You're headed to a rifle platoon near the Iron Triangle, an area that, according to every rumor, is a kind of jungle Bermuda Triangle where bad luck goes to retire. You look at Greg. He shrugs. Guess we'll see each other when we see each other. You hug. Quick, awkward. Too tight to mean nothing. Ramos just nods. Don't get dead. You nod back. Try not to build anything that explodes. He smirks. No promises. And just like that, you're split. Not enemies. Not brothers anymore either. Just soldiers on separate pages of the same chapter. And as you board the truck that will take you deeper into Vietnam, you grip your rifle tighter, squint into the rising sun, and try not to imagine what you'll be by the time you ride back. If you ride back at all. The truck ride from Tan Son Hut to your new post starts like a road trip and ends like a funeral procession, minus the eulogy and plus a machine gunner riding shotgun. You sit on a hard bench in the back of a deuce and a half, one of those big army trucks that rattles your bones even on smooth roads, which these definitely are not. Your duffel bag is crammed between your knees. Your helmet keeps sliding forward and hitting the bridge of your nose. Every turn kicks up another plume of red dust, which coats your skin, your gear, and your very soul. The landscape blurs by. Rice paddies, banana trees, barbed wire fences, thatched huts, and children waving on the roadside with smiles that don't quite reach their eyes. You pass a group of South Vietnamese soldiers smoking and laughing beneath a tarp. One of them is wearing flip-flops and balancing an AK-47 on his shoulder like a farmer's hoe. Your driver yells over the engine. You see anyone smiling in the jungle. You smile back, but don't stop smiling. That's how you know who's real and who's thinking about shooting you. Great. Helpful. As you head farther north, the roads narrow, the vegetation thickens, and the air turns almost syrupy. Jungle vines drape across power lines. You hear cicadas, birds, distant shouting, and was that a gunshot? No one says anything. One of the older soldiers across from you, a guy with sergeant stripes and a tan like baked clay, says, "First-timers always try to figure out what's worth being afraid of. Save yourself the trouble. Be afraid of everything." You wish he was joking. You know he's not. Eventually, you arrive at what they generously call a forward operating base. It's less base, more angry campground with machine gun nests. There are sandbag walls, a few wood-framed hooches with corrugated tin roofs, a field mess tent, and a communication shack with an antenna that looks like it might have been borrowed from a Cold War drive-in theater. Your new unit, Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry Regiment, greets you like they're already betting on how long you'll last. One guy calls out, "Fresh meat." Another laughs, "Hope you brought bug spray and body bags." You try to look calm. You fail. A lean, wiry staff sergeant named Klein calls roll, assigns you to 3rd Platoon, and points you toward a bunker with a hole in the roof and a rat the size of a corgi lounging in the corner like he pays rent. This is home now, and you thought basic was rough. It only takes a few hours before you understand. This is a different game. Basic was loud, structured, full of barked orders and scheduled misery. This is chaos held together with duct tape and superstition. The chain of command still exists, sure, but it's warped by heat, fear, and fatigue. No one salutes anymore. Too risky. It's an easy way to tell the enemy who the officer is. Instead, ranks are understood silently. Authority is earned not by yelling, but by surviving. The first thing they teach you is how to distinguish between friendly fire, enemy fire, and we don't know and we don't care fire. Spoiler, they all sound exactly the same. And then, there's the jungle. Your first patrol into it is like stepping onto another planet. The air is so humid your skin gives up on trying to stay dry. The trees are massive, ancient things draped in vines. The underbrush is so thick you have to hack your way through it with a machete. And every time you swing, you expect something, snake, spider, landmine, to swing back. You're wearing standard issue fatigues, but they do nothing to stop the leeches, which you discover when you sit down for lunch and find one inside your sock, fat and smug. You're a squad leader, a corporal with a neck tattoo of a skull wearing sunglasses, casually flicks it off with the tip of his knife and says, "Welcome to paradise." You can't tell if he's serious. You don't ask. The patrol is uneventful in the worst way. No ambushes. No shots fired. Just 4 hours of slogging through muck, mud, and the constant fear that something might happen. Any moment, any step. And that's what wears you down. Not the violence. The waiting for violence. You pass shattered tree trunks pockmarked by bullet holes. Char huts. Empty trails. You step over a discarded sandal and realize it's child-sized. That night, back at the base, no one talks much. Your hands won't stop trembling. Not from exertion. From everything else. There's a briefing the next morning. Your platoon will be rotating to an outpost deeper into contested territory. The Iron Triangle, as rumored. The name sounds cool, like something from a comic book. It's not. It's a dense network of jungle, villages, and underground Viet sewn tunnels. American troops nickname it Hell's Front Yard. Troops go in. Sometimes they come out. Often they don't. Your orders are to hold position, run reconnaissance, and intercept supply lines. Translation: wander into a meat grinder and hope the gears skip you. You pack up your gear, load onto a smaller truck with sandbags stacked against the side, and head out. You try not to imagine how long it'll be before you ride in the other direction. You try not to think about Greg or Ramos or anyone who might already be out there doing the same thing. Fringe tidbit: to fight boredom and fear, some soldiers in Vietnam kept death diaries, tiny notebooks where they wrote one sentence each day about whether they thought they'd survive. Many pages simply read still here. You don't have a death diary, but in your head, you're already tracking the days. Day 1 in country. Day 2 on patrol. Day 3 in the jungle. Day 4. You'll find out soon enough. As the convoy drives deeper into the thickets of Vietnam, the trees close in like the jaws of something ancient and patient. You rest your rifle across your lap, eyes scanning the underbrush, brain pinging with nerves. Every branch could hide a sniper. Every curve in the road could hold a mine. Every whisper of wind could be something else. Your boots are soaked. Your uniform clings. Your mouth tastes like copper. You tell yourself, breathe. Just keep breathing. Because if the jungle wants you, it'll take you fast. But until then, you're still here. And that has to be enough. You're not even 72 hours into your new assignment in the Iron Triangle when the phrase, "you'll get used to it," officially loses all meaning. Because this isn't something you get used to. This is a different planet. Your new outpost doesn't have a name, just a designation. It's little more than a handful of sandbag bunkers, a few perimeter claymores, and a radio shack wired together with hope, wire cutters, and an unhealthy reliance on duct tape. Trees press in from all sides. The jungle here doesn't just surround you, it envelopes you, muffling sound, swallowing light, and generally behaving like an enemy that never has to reload. The previous unit left 2 days before you arrived. They didn't say much on the way out, just that the bugs were worse than the bullets, and to check the latrines for snakes. Helpful. You're assigned to a fire team of 5 under Corporal Delaney. Tough guy, soft voice, eyes that have seen too much. He doesn't say hello, just nods and hands you a canteen. Don't drink all at once. You'll sweat it out before you swallow. Friendly. Your first full patrol is a night operation. Because of course it is. The jungle at night is indescribable. Imagine someone turned out the stars, cranked up the heat, and then pressed play on an unholy mixtape of insects, frogs, and your own heartbeat. You move in staggered file, rifles raised, boots squelching through wet loam. Your squad's point man is a quiet guy named Hall, who somehow walks like he's weightless. Every few steps, you step on something sharp, damp, or disturbingly alive. A branch grazes your cheek. A beetle crawls down your collar. You do not scream. That's progress. Hall halts, raises a fist. Everyone freezes. You hear movement, a rustle, then silence. Delaney whispers, "Could be monkeys. Could be worse." You don't ask what worse means. You already know. You return to the outpost with nothing to report. That's good. Or maybe it's bad, because you don't want contact. But you also don't want to wonder what was watching you in that clearing. The VC could be 10 feet away, and you'd never know. That's how good they are. That's how much this jungle favors them, not you. Historians still argue whether U.S. troops were ever psychologically or tactically prepared for guerrilla warfare in terrain like this. You don't need a symposium. You're living the answer. The next few days fall into a rhythm, if you can call it that. Daytime patrols, night watches, sandbag filling, ambush drills. See rations that somehow taste worse every time. You'd give your last grenade for a cheeseburger, a cold Coke, and 5 minutes in an air-conditioned room without mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds. Speaking of which, mosquitoes, they're not just pests. They're flying syringes with vendettas. You've taken so many malaria pills your urine glows faintly in the dark. Probably. A guy named Kip, tall, skinny, from Colorado, says he read somewhere that ancient Vietnamese soldiers used crushed garlic to keep mosquitoes away. You try it. You still get bit. Now you just smell like a sweaty salad. You're also starting to learn the lingo. Every soldier here speaks a kind of jungle code. Indian country means anywhere not actively controlled by U.S. forces, which is basically everywhere. Boom boom is not what you think. Well, okay, sometimes it is. Charlie means Viet Song. LZ means landing zone, usually the last place you want to be standing. Fringe tidbit. Some GIs in Vietnam would give nicknames to VC snipers, the Ghost, Old Man Tree, or Betty Crocker, because it was easier to live with constant fear if you could pretend the danger had a personality. One of your squad mates claims a local sniper has killed 5 men in the past week. They call him Midnight Moses. You start scanning treetops a little more closely. The first real firefight comes out of nowhere. You're on patrol. It's hot. It's always hot. Your shirt is stuck to your back, and you're thinking about coconut water and not stepping on a punji steak when the jungle erupts. Gunfire from the trees. Sharp cracking, like firecrackers, only more final. Your instinct kicks in before thought. Drop. Crawl. Return fire. Shouts all around you. Orders, cries, curses. Smoke. Screams. The bark of M16S and the heavier thunk of an M60 echoing behind you. You fire blind into the brush, praying you're not hitting a tree. Or nothing at all. Someone yells, flank right. You move. You slip in mud. Your rifle jams. You fumble, tap rack bang, just like they taught you. Your breath comes in short gasps. Your helmet feels like a vice. And the one thing screaming louder than the bullets is your brain. This is it, this is it, this is it. And then it stops, like someone hit pause. You lie there, panting, ears ringing, hands shaking. No one's dead. Not today. A few cuts. A few rounds embedded in trees a little too close to faces. But no Kia. You don't feel lucky. You feel exposed. That night, you clean your rifle for the 3rd time. You inspect every inch of it like a priest checking a relic. You lie awake, listening to the jungle breathe around the outpost. Every sound is a possibility. Every silence is worse. You're starting to understand why the older guys don't talk much. Why their eyes dart even during mealtime. Why they carve tally marks on their helmets. Not for kills, but for days survived. Somewhere, in your duffel, you still have that letter from your mom. You don't open it. Not tonight. You're afraid it might remind you of who you were before. And out here, that version of you feels like a liability. There's an old superstition spreading through the platoon. If you shave before a patrol, Charlie knows you're coming. You haven't shaved in 3 days. No one tells you to. No one wants to test the theory. You've now been in country long enough that the word Vietnam means less like a country and more like a temperature. Constant, humid, crawling with danger, and soaked into everything you wear, think, and breathe. You don't even bother trying to stay clean anymore. What's the point? The jungle doesn't care. The moment you scrub the grime off, it gives you a fresh coat of sweat, soot, or something disturbingly organic. Your skin has turned into camouflage, dirt-patterned, blister-bitten, and streaked with streaks from leech bites, rifle oil, and God knows what kind of sap. And now, just when you think you've seen it all, your squad is assigned tunnel duty. Yes, tunnels. The Viet Song didn't just fight from the trees. They fought from underground. They built miles of hidden tunnels all through this region. Some so tight you have to crawl on your belly to get through, others large enough to hold entire command centers. They live there, sleep there, store weapons, hold meetings, even perform surgery down there. It's like someone built a city beneath your boots and forgot to tell you until you fell through the floor. This is what you're dealing with now. And guess what? Your turn has come. You and your team are briefed by a tunnel rat. A short, Wiry corporal from Alabama who looks like he was born in a foxhole. He's got one pistol, one flashlight, and nerves made of something that definitely isn't fiber. He shows you a schematic that's basically a squiggly line leading into a darker, squiggly line labeled chamber. Most of them run about 100 yards. Some deeper, some trapped, some ain't been seen since '68. You find a false floor, you're probably standing on a punji pit. You find a map or radio. You bring it back. You find Charlie down there. You handle it. You handle it, right? Because nothing says handle like facing the unknown in a hole where you can't turn around or even stand. The entrance is hidden, always is. They found it after a patrol spotted a fresh vent poking up through the jungle floor. At first, you thought it was a broken bamboo chute. Now you know it's a breathing straw, a ventilation pipe, a portal to something ancient, damp, and lethal. Delaney tosses a flare down the hole. It hits dirt, bounces once, and fizzles out in the dark. And then, somehow it's decided, you'll go in. Not just you. You and Hall, the silent point man. He give you a nod like, it'll be fine, which would be more convincing if he wasn't already white-knuckling his flashlight like it owed him money. You lower yourself in. Feet first. Rifle slung across your back. Sidearm in hand. The walls close in immediately. Your belly down within the first 20 feet, crawling over roots and stones, through air so thick it might be alive. There's no sound except your own breathing and the soft scrape of your gear against dirt. Your flashlight cuts a narrow cone ahead, revealing spiderwebs, scuttling shadows, and walls etched with scratch marks. Some intentional, some not. You whisper, Hall, you good? He grunts. That's good enough. After 10 minutes, you hit a junction. A wider chamber, maybe 6 feet across, barely tall enough to crouch. There are signs of recent use. Spent batteries, an empty canteen, cigarette, but still fragrant. You whisper it into the radio. Delaney tells you to grab what you can. Don't linger. But just as you're reaching for the canteen, Hall hisses, stop. You freeze. He points at the floor. You see it. Thin fishing line, almost invisible, stretched taut across the dirt. Booby trap. Maybe a tripwire. Maybe something worse. You'll never know. You both back out, inch by inch, not blinking, not breathing too loudly. 15 minutes later, you emerge into daylight like you've been reborn. Gasping, filthy, soaked through, and miraculously intact. That night, you can't sleep. Not because of noise, but because of what's underneath. You start to realize the jungle isn't just overhead. It's below, around, inside. There's no safe place. Even the ground can't be trusted. Fringe fact, some tunnel rats reported seeing underground kitchens with functioning stoves and bunk beds built from bamboo. One even stumbled upon a room with propaganda leaflets printed in English, Spanish, and French, just in case they caught an international visitor. You don't find a kitchen, but you do find a new fear, the claustrophobic kind. The next few days are quieter, but quiet here isn't peaceful. It's suspicious. It's a breath held too long. Delaney starts making everyone sleep in shifts. 3 men up, 2 down. Rotation every 2 hours. You try to protest. He shuts you down with a look. Better to sleep less than sleep forever. You don't argue again. You start carrying 2 extra mags. 1 for Charlie. 1 for yourself. You don't say that out loud, of course. But it's a thought that creeps in now. And once it creeps in, it never really leaves. You're sent on another patrol. This one is village recon. You pass through an open rice field, boots sinking with every step. A few farmers stare as you pass, stone-faced, unreadable. Are they innocent? Are they spies? Are they just exhausted? You'll never know. The village is quiet. Too quiet. Children peek from doorways. Women sit weaving, eyes cast downward. You're told to search every 3rd hut. Look for radio parts, ammo, maps. In one hut, you find a bicycle that's been reinforced with wood and steel, clearly used for hauling supplies. In another, Hall finds a cache of documents wrapped in oilcloth. Propaganda, movement logs, lists of names. Delaney says, bag it. You do. Then, behind the hut, you find something else. A burial mound. Fresh. Too fresh. You look at it. You don't ask. Delaney mutters, keep walking. So you do. Because here, Questions are bullets, and sometimes they ricochet. Historians still debate the effectiveness of U.S. search and destroy tactics in villages like these. Some say it crippled Viet Cong logistics. Others argue it turned every farmer into an enemy. You don't care about strategy anymore. You just care about getting back to base in one piece. Back at camp, you strip down, hose off. Check your boots for leeches. Check your sole for holes. No luck on either front. You sit down, scratch a note on a scrap of C-ration cardboard. Still here. You fold it. Put it inside your helmet. No stamp required. Just a small reminder to yourself. One more day survived. And tomorrow, we'll see. Morning hits like a mallet. Not just because someone's yelling up and armed, ladies, from outside your hooch, but because your body now registers sleep as a suggestion, not a right. You sit up, boots already halfway laced from when you collapsed into them 3 hours ago. Mosquitoes buzz at your ears like a barbershop quartet from hell. You slap at one and smear a streak of blood across your neck. Yours? Probably. You don't check. Delaney's voice cuts through the morning haze. Briefing in 5. Bring your gear and your brains. Both better be functional. You grab your rifle, your helmet, your half-empty canteen, and trudge. Today's op is different. This isn't patrol, recon, or another lovely tunnel crawl. This is a sweep and clear mission on the western edge of the triangle. You're pairing up with ARVN soldiers, South Vietnamese troops, and the mood is tense. Partly because of the language barrier. Partly because of the trust barrier. The ARVN guys look young. Too young. Most of them wear mismatched uniforms. One of them has a bandana made from what looks like an old-school uniform necktie. Their officer, a guy named Captain Min, greets your squad with a stiff nod and says in clipped English, "We go slow. Watch for false trails. VC know we come." Great. Any air support? Delaney asks. Captain Min shrugs. Maybe. If not raining. Maybe not. Perfect. The jungle is even thicker in this direction. The trail narrows to barely a foot across. Vines claw at your arms. And somewhere in the distance, monkeys scream like they just read your deployment orders. You try to keep a steady pace, but your legs burn and your back aches. Worse, you can feel it. That pressure. Not physical. Not from the pack or the heat. Something else. Heavier. Like the jungle's holding its breath. Eyes up. Delaney mutters. You obey. Not 10 minutes later, the point man halts. A strange pattern in the dirt. Circular. Discolored. Not a leaf. Not natural. It's a landmine. Just sitting there. Like it's waiting for someone to make a mistake. Everyone freezes. You wait while Min's sapper carefully disarms it using a stick, a knife, and more confidence than seems medically advisable. When it's safe again, Min says, "Only one." Means more ahead. He's right. The sweep goes on for hours. You check abandoned huts. Overgrown footpaths. Bamboo thickets that feel too dense, too silent. Twice, you find tripwire traps. One rigged to a grenade, another to a stack of sharpened stakes. Both could have killed someone. Both nearly do. Then the lead ARVN soldier raises a fist. Movement ahead. You drop to a knee. Safety off. Heart thudding. Delaney gestures. Flank left. You inch forward, sidestepping a vine, moving through brush so thick your rifle gets caught on branches. There, a flash of black pajama cloth. A shape darting between trees. Contact, someone shouts. The firefight begins. Gunfire shreds the silence. You hear the rapid pop-pop-pop of AKs and the answering bark of M16s. Someone's shouting in Vietnamese. Someone's already down. The RVN, you think. You see a VC fighter duck behind a tree and raise a rifle. You squeeze off a burst. Tree bark explodes. He doesn't move again. You don't wait to confirm. Delaney yells, "Push up." You do. Half running, half tripping, boots slamming into roots, mud, and shell casings. You stumble into a clearing, wide and muddy, and it's quiet again. Too quiet. The VC are gone. Vanished. Again, this is how they fight. Hit. Vanish. Bleed you out in inches. You check for wounded. The ARVN guy who went down is still breathing, but barely. Shot in the side. Delaney calls in a medevac request, but Min just shakes his head. Heli won't come this far. Too dangerous. So the man gets carried back, moaning. You don't know his name. You don't ask. Back at base, the after-action report is typed up by a clerk with more ink on his hands and sweat on his shirt. It'll be filed under successful sweep. Found traps. Engaged enemy. No U.S. casualties. You lie back on your cot and stare at the ceiling. Successful? You nearly stepped on a mine. You shot someone. You still don't know if he was aiming at you. Hall tosses you a cigarette. You don't smoke. You light it anyway. Fringe fact. U.S. soldiers sometimes carved peace symbols into their helmets during the war. Not as a joke, but as a way to express the insanity of their position. You're here to kill, and also to bring peace. You're sent to save, but trained to destroy. Soldiers lived in that contradiction daily. You start scratching something into your helmet that night. Not a peace sign, just tally marks. For missions. For days survived. For moments you still don't understand. Delaney pulls you aside after dinner. You're on watch tonight. Midnight shift. North Tower. You nod. No complaints. There's no such thing as sleep anymore. Just intermissions. The tower is barely a structure. Some planks, some sandbags, a radio that picks up more static than orders. You sit in the dark, eyes scanning the tree line. You think about Greg. You think about Ramos. You think about the guy in black who disappeared behind that tree. And you try not to think about how easily it could have been you. Then, at 300 hours, something moves. Just a flicker. A shape. You raise your rifle. Hold your breath. But it's nothing. Or it's something that doesn't want to be seen. You lower your weapon. Your hands are still trembling. Historians still argue whether these kinds of missions, hit-and-run sweeps with ARV and allies, actually disrupted the VC or simply pushed them deeper underground. The results are hard to measure, but you're not here to measure. You're here to survive. And for one more day, you did. You record another tally mark and wait for the next. Because here in Vietnam, there's no weekend. There's only next time. You lose track of how many days pass between firefights. That's not an exaggeration. Time here isn't measured in hours or meals or even sunrises. It's measured in intensity spikes. Those sudden, heart-pounding moments when the air changes, everyone tenses, and you just know something's about to happen. And then sometimes nothing does, which somehow makes it worse. They call this phase the long drag. Not a break, not calm, just the in-between. The part where you keep patrolling, sweating, and jumping at every noise without the release of actual combat. The fear stays coiled like a spring, winding tighter and tighter. Delaney explains it best one evening while you're all hunkered under a tarp during a rainstorm. This war isn't about winning fights. It's about not falling apart between them. Hard to argue with that. One day you're assigned to guard duty on Route 13, also known as Thunder Road. It runs through the jungle like a scar, stretching from Saigon to the Cambodian border. Everyone hates Thunder Road. It's been mined, ambushed, and bombarded more times than you can count. Your job is to escort a convoy, fuel trucks, supply jeeps, troop transports. Seems simple enough. Keep eyes on the trees. Scan every ditch. Stay alert. You ride shotgun in a jeep at the front of the column. Your driver is a guy named Spinks, an older draftee from Michigan who looks like someone tried to bake a scarecrow in the sun and gave up halfway. Spinks chews toothpicks, never the same one twice. You see that puddle up ahead? He says, pointing. Yeah. Too round. Could be a mine. You swerve. Nothing happens. You think I'm paranoid? He asks. You shake your head. Good. Means I'm doing it right. The convoy rolls slow. Children wave from behind fences. Water buffalo graze near cratered fields. Every now and then, a rooster crows from somewhere deep in the bush, sounding like it's mocking you. You keep your rifle pointed outward, barrel steady, eyes scanning. And then you pass a wreck. A burned-out truck, twisted, blackened, still steaming despite the heat. A pair of boots sit beside it. No feet in them. No one says anything. You drive on. That's the job. Later, while stopped for a radio check, you hear one of the rear gunners talking about ghosts. Swears up and down he saw something the night before, a woman in white drifting near the tree line. Long hair, no face, no footsteps, just hovering. Vietnamese legend, Spinks mutters. Woman dies during war, becomes a wandering soul. Seen all over, usually before something bad happens. You ask if he believes it. He doesn't answer. Your night patrol that week is the most nerve-wracking yet. The jungle changes at night, becomes alive in a different way. There's no moon this time, just black. Your flashlight barely penetrates a few feet ahead. Sounds echo weirdly. Leaves crunch where no one's stepping. Something splashes in a stream you already crossed. You're not alone. You don't know who else is out there. And somehow that's become routine. When you return to base, there's mail waiting. 2 letters. One from your mom. Another from someone you weren't expecting. Ramos. He's stationed down south now. Writes like he's narrating a noir movie. Too hot, too loud, too long. One guy in my unit adopted a stray dog and named it Nixon. Not sure if it's treason or patriotism. He ended with "stay breathing." That's our only real job. You smile for the first time in a week. Then you reread your mom's letter. She enclosed a photo. Your little brother standing in front of the house, holding a sign that says, "Come home, soldier." You fold it and slide it into your helmet liner. You don't tell anyone. A few nights later, the jungle returns the favor. Incoming mortar fire. No warning. Just a sudden whistle, like a shriek from the sky. And then the boom. The base shakes. Everyone scrambles. You hit the ground, grab your weapon, and crawl to the trench as more shells rain down. Delaney yells, "Return fire," though there's nothing to see. You aim blindly at the tree lean. The attack lasts 5 minutes. Feels like 5 hours. When it stops, the silence is deafening. You rise slowly. No casualties, but the mess tent's gone. So is the latrine. Everyone looks dazed, covered in dust and smoke. Delaney just mutters, "Guess we're eating cold beans and crapping in buckets for a while." Humor helps. Barely. Historians still argue whether these small nighttime assaults served a strategic purpose or were just psychological warfare. Didn't matter to you. It worked. You now jump every time someone opens a soda can. You get a 1-day pass to the rear base for morale maintenance. It's surreal. Electric lights. Showers. A chow hall with food that's actually warm. There's a movie playing, The Green Berets with John Wayne. Half the guys walk out halfway through. One says, "Man, I wish the war was as clean as that movie." You nod and think about the jungle, the tunnels, the smell of blood mixed with fish sauce. You don't finish your popcorn. You get a haircut while you're there. The barber's Vietnamese, wears a clean apron and doesn't speak a word. He cuts fast and never makes eye contact. You wonder if he has a son out in the jungle. You don't ask. That night, you write a letter of your own. To Ramos. You tell him about Thunder Road, Spinks, the phantom woman in white. You don't mention the mortars. No point worrying him. You end with, "We're both still breathing." That counts. Then you fall asleep in a bunk that doesn't smell like mildew and regret. And for a few hours, you almost feel like a human again. Almost. You're back in the jungle the next morning like nothing ever happened. No one cares that you got a real shower, or that you saw a movie, or that you didn't sleep in your boots. It's over. Rear-base luxuries are like mirages. There, then gone. Not even worth missing. Delaney greets you with a sarcastic, "Look who smells like soap. Must be nice." You grunt. No witty comeback. You're already sweating again. The new mission. Clearing a suspected VC supply trail that snakes through the trees northwest of your outpost. Satellite maps show nothing. Locals won't talk, but intel says it's there. You and your squad are tasked with walking it, marking any traps, cache sites, or tunnels. It's your 6th patrol this week. You're starting to move like the jungle itself. Deliberate, slow, aware of every leaf, every broken twig, every unnatural silence. You're hearing sharper, your grip more reflexive. You stop flinching at every branch brushing your neck. Well, almost every branch. Hall takes point again. The guy could track a ghost through fog. He raises a hand, then a clenched fist. You freeze. He points at a clump of disturbed soil. Soft. Too soft. Delaney nods, motions to a guy in back. Kip, who's now become the unofficial trap detector. Kip gets low, brushes away the topsoil, reveals a cluster of glass jars filled with nails and explosives. Homemade booby trap mines, triggered by pressure or string. You all exhale. Kip grins. Charlie's arts and crafts. You move on, a little slower. Later, you find a small bamboo hut hidden off trail. Half covered in vines, like the jungle tried to swallow a whole, but got bored halfway through. Inside, a rusted stove, cooking pots, and 3 rifles leaning against the wall. There's a journal in the corner, written in Vietnamese. Ben's not with you today, so you bag it. Then Hall spots a trapdoor in the floor. Tunnel. You nod. You both stare at it. No one moves. Eventually, Delaney says, "Mark it. We'll send the rats later." You don't argue. You don't want to see what's down there. You've seen enough dirt ceilings lately. By dusk, you're camped beside a creek. No base nearby. Just a ranger bivouac. That lovely tradition of sleeping in a wet hammock while pretending you don't hear leopards or NVA whispers in the dark. The squad is quiet. Everyone's tired. Hall and Kip boil some river water and share a pack of crackers they've been hoarding. You take a sip of tepid tea someone made from jungle leaves. Delaney says it keeps mosquitoes off. He also said last week that smoking a sea ration spoon with gunpowder could give you a good buzz. So, you take it with salt, which of course you don't have. You lie back in your hammock, and for a moment, just a moment, you let yourself look up. The jungle canopy is thick, but there are holes. Tiny stars peek through. You remember a high school camping trip years ago. Cold air, pine trees, real stars, actual peace. And now, you're counting tree branches to guess sniper positions. That's who you are now. Fringe fact. Some soldiers in Vietnam began sleeping on top of ponchos filled with air called jungle beds to stay off the wet ground and away from snakes. Of course, if you shifted too much in your sleep, the hissing air could sound suspiciously like a cobra. You'll stick to the hammock. Next morning, the patrol continues. You pass more signs, shoe prints, broken brush, ash from a cooking fire. The VC have been here recently. Too recently. Delaney orders a radio check, then positions the squad in a crescent around a clearing ahead. You move forward slowly, finger resting on the trigger. The clearing is silent. Empty. Almost. Then Hall stops and points. A body. A young man, face down. No uniform. Civilian clothes. One sandal missing. Handbound. He's been there maybe a day. Delaney mutters, "VC execution. Message for someone." You feel the back of your neck go cold. You're not sure what scares you more, the enemy or what happens when the enemy thinks you're helping them. No one touches the body. You mark the coordinates. Leave it for CID. Move on. Later, as you're setting up a temporary perimeter, Kip comes running up the trail. Delaney. Hall just found a wire running along the path. Maybe radio line. You follow him, breath catching. And there it is, a long black wire. So thin it's almost invisible, running just beneath the dirt like a vein. You follow it 20 yards, 30, then you hit a cave. No entrance, just a bluff, overgrown. But behind a curtain of vines, there's a stone slab covering a hole. You report it. They call in a tunnel team. It's confirmed, a major node. Command later tells you it was a regional VC communications hub. Buried, invisible, almost untouched. You stumbled on it by accident. You feel proud for a second. Then you remember that for every one of these you find, dozens go unnoticed. Historians still argue whether these discoveries ever truly dented the VC's operational structure. Their ability to relocate, rebuild, and conceal was legendary. Like smoke, like ghosts. You don't think about that too hard. You're just glad this one's shut down. Back at base, the radio guys cheer when they hear the news. You're given 5 minutes on the field phone to call someone. Anyone. You think about Ramos. Then your mom. Then you just hold the phone and put it back down. There's nothing you can say that doesn't sound like a lie. "I'm fine" isn't true. "I'm scared" doesn't help. So you say nothing. Just walk back to your hooch and try to sleep. That night, you dream about the body in the clearing. Except it's your face, and someone else is walking past. The monsoon comes like a freight train with no headlights. One night, the air gets impossibly still. So still you can hear yourself blink, and the next, it's like the sky splits open with a roar and decides to never close again. Rain in Vietnam isn't just weather. It's a second war, and you lose every battle. It pours without pause for hours, then days. Roads become rivers. Bunkers collapse. Tents soak from the inside out. You watch your gear mold in real time. The jungle, already alive with strange creatures and death traps, becomes a slippery soup of rot and danger. Your boots never dry. Your socks smell like regret. Your rifle gets cleaned twice a day and still develops rust freckles by nightfall. Your hands stay wrinkled like you're soaking in a war-ready bathtub. Delaney just says, "Welcome to the squish." Ray means patrols don't stop, they just get uglier. You slosh through flooded rice paddies where leeches cling to your ankles like affectionate curses. The mud grabs at your legs, sucking 1 foot deeper with every step. Half the time, you're crouched in waist-high water, moving blind, hoping your M16 doesn't jam. Hall slips on a mossy rock and goes face first into the muck. Comes up smiling. "You think we're waterproof now?" he asks. Kip answers, "Nah, we're just water-flavored." Everyone laughs for a second. Just a second. That afternoon, you're told to secure an abandoned village rumored to be used as a VC resupply point. Abandoned is a generous word. The huts are there barely. Roofs sag, walls lean. Chickens flutter away as you approach, feathers soaked. One pig squeals from a pen half flooded in mud. You move carefully, searching each home. Most are empty. Until the fourth hut. There's movement. Delaney holds up a fist. Everyone stops. You aim your rifle, breathing shallow. The door creaks. A girl steps out, maybe 7 years old. Soaked, barefoot, holding a bundle of soaked rags. Everyone stares. Then Kip mutters, "Oh hell," because the bundle is crying. It's a baby, wrapped in old army jackets, trembling. You lower your weapon. The girl doesn't speak, doesn't cry, just waits. Delaney radios in. Command gives a quick answer. Wait for civil affairs, but do not engage. Engage? They're kids. You give the girl a piece of candy from your rations. She takes it without blinking. Doesn't even look at it. Just holds it and stares into the trees. Kip leans over and whispers, "She's seen stuff. Worse than us." And you believe it. Later that night, back at the outpost, you hear some of the older guys talking. There's a story going around. One says, about a kid who ran supplies to the VC. Only 7. They called him the Ghost Courier. Slipped past checkpoints like wind. You think about the girl. You don't ask. You don't want to know. The next week, the rain gets worse. Bunkers flood. Ammo boxes swell like sponges. Delaney's hooch grows a mushroom. "No joke," he says, holding it up like a prize. "Name it, and I'll keep it. Kip, call it Nixon." Done. You hear about guys in other units getting trench foot, a 1917 problem in a 1970 war. You start drying your socks over heat taps. You sleep with your boots under your head like pillows. Fringe fact. Some GIs wore pantyhose under their fatigues to avoid leeches and fungus. Sounds ridiculous until you're scrubbing a slug-like parasite off your thigh and wondering if 99-cent hosiery could have saved you from that trauma. You ask around. 3 guys already do it. One day, you get sent out to recover a down chopper. Pilot's alive. Co-pilot's not. The wreck's half submerged in a flooded ravine, rotors twisted like a broken spider. You help pull the surviving pilot out. He's got a broken arm, burns on his neck, and a look like his soul stayed in the sky. You recognize it. That distant stare. You've seen in mirrors. As the monsoon rages on, your squad moves less and fortifies more. More time spent in bunkers, on guard shifts, cleaning weapons, playing cards that dissolve after 3 games. Someone builds a chessboard out of sea ration boxes and bits of charcoal. The night is a melted spoon. You play Kip and lose 3 games in a row. He says, "You keep sacrificing your pawns too fast." You nod. Feels accurate. You write another letter home. It's short. Still breathing. Still wet. Still thinking about trees that move when no wind blows. Say hi to Benny for me. Miss real towels. You don't seal it right away. Just stare at the paper, then add one last line. Sometimes I forget what dry feels like. Then you fold it and hand it to the mail clerk. He's got a broken umbrella and a half-smoked cigarette that never seems to go out. Historians still debate whether the monsoon season helped or hindered either side. Some argue it slowed U.S. momentum and destroyed morale. Others believe it disrupted VC supply lines and tunnel activity. You're not a historian. You're a guy trying to not drown in his boots. The rain finally stops. Not all at once. Just a long exhale like the jungle gave up for now. The sun comes back. Briefly. Steam rises off the earth like ghosts returning to the sky. You sit on a rock, drying your socks. Kip sits beside you. Smell that, he says. You sniff. Rot. Nope. That's hope. You both laugh. But you know the truth. The jungle doesn't rest. It just waits. There's a saying you've heard more than once now. The war's out there, but the war's also in here. And as time drips past, like sweat, like rain, like blood, you start to realize what that means. It's not just about the firefights or the tunnels or even the monsoon. It's about what the war does to you when nothing's happening. When you're just waiting, watching, wondering. Because in Vietnam, silence is not peace. It's the waiting room before pain. Your squad gets rotated to a firebase on high ground. Firebase Phoenix, though nobody calls it that. Everyone calls it the oven because the clay soil bakes red hot under the sun and the artillery pit steams like a devil's sauna. You're there to resupply the mortar team and reinforce outer defenses. It's not glamorous. You dig. You sandbag. You eat meals hot enough to melt your tongue and sleep in trenches that smell like sulfur and sweat. But compared to jungle patrols, it's almost civilized. You even get shower bags, black rubber sacks hung from makeshift poles that you fill in the morning and wash under at night. The water's still brown, still smells like metal, but it falls straight down, and that feels like luxury. Then comes night shift on the perimeter. Firebase Phoenix doesn't get a lot of action, until it does. You're posted in a sandbagged foxhole overlooking a narrow ravine. Your partner is Jacoby, a kid from Brooklyn with a laugh like a chainsaw and a permanent squint from forgetting his sunglasses in week 2 of deployment. He tells stories while you wait for nothing to happen. About his ex-girlfriend. About his brother who got out of the draft by eating soap. About a dream he had where he turned into a Jeep. You listen, because anything is better than listening to your own thoughts. Then, around 2 a.m., Jacoby stops mid-sentence. Did you see that? You didn't. You look where he's pointing, out beyond the ravine. Something moved. Or maybe it didn't. Could have been a bush in the breeze. Could have been a sniper crawling in slow motion. Could have been your brain playing jungle charades. Jacoby raises his M16. You raise yours. Wait. Stillness. Then a rustle, very soft, very deliberate. Jacoby flips the safety off. And suddenly, the flare goes up. You both hit the dirt. The night explodes into light. Red-white shadows race across the trees. You scan, no targets. Then the light fades. Darkness returns. No shots fired. Delaney comes on a radio. You girls okay? Jacoby responds. Think so. Just spook. Roger that. Next time, shoot second, ID first. You both look at each other. Same thought. What if it wasn't nothing? Historians still argue whether post-flare sightings were hallucinations caused by sleep deprivation or actual VC scouts using psychological tactics. Some think they were just monkeys. Some say they were testing your nerves. You don't know. But the next night, Jacoby insists on staying silent. And the night after that, he's sent back to base with a nervous stomach. You don't ask more. Fringe fact, some fire bases played rock music over loudspeakers during night shifts, partly to keep the troops alert, and partly to mess with the VC. Rumor had it that hearing Paint It Black or Fortunate Son from a jungle hilltop could make an enemy second guess approaching. Others say it just annoyed the monkeys. Firebase Phoenix doesn't have a speaker, but Kip starts humming. Every night. The same song, Ain't No Sunshine. Soft. Barely there. It helps. Weirdly, you spend days stacking crates, fixing wire, and filling sandbags. You write in a notebook someone left behind. The cover says weekly inspection log. You turn it into poetry. Day 94. Boots full of clay. Jacoby saw ghosts. I saw mud. We both sleep like it's optional. You show it to Hall. He grins. You're gonna get published after this. You raise an eyebrow. In Psych Weekly, maybe, one afternoon, you're called in to escort a visiting lieutenant colonel. Apparently, he's on a tour of the fire bases. Wants to see morale on the ground. He's crisp. Polished boots. Smiles too easily. Asks, "What's it like up here, soldier?" You say, "Red clay and long nights, sir." He nods like that's a profound truth. says something about winning hearts and minds. You want to say, whose hearts? Whose minds? But you nod instead. He moves on. Jacoby leans over and mutters. He smells like a library. You both laugh. You watch his helicopter lift off later, its rotor wash scattering dust across your face. And then it's quiet again. A few nights later, Phoenix gets hit. No flares this time. Just mortars. And RPGs. And yelling. You wake up to the sound of boom, then the sharp chick of incoming rounds. You scramble from your hooch into the trench, heart in your throat, rifle shaking in your hands. You see Kip firing into the night, Hall dragging someone to cover, Delaney screaming for return fire. The sky glows orange from burning crates. You can't see the enemy, but they're there, moving like smoke. The attack lasts 10 minutes, maybe 20. It feels like forever stretched tight. When it stops, you hear crying, then silence, then Jacoby's voice. Medic! You rush over. Kip's hit, shoulder and leg. Not fatal, but bad. He's pale, teeth clenched, muttering something about his socks. You help carry him to the casualty tent. Delaney radios for evac. Phoenix holds, but barely. By morning, the fire's out. You help bury the shrapnel in a pit beside the calm shed. You clean your rifle twice. You sit on a crate and think about Kip's humming, and wonder if Firebase Phoenix will be standing next week. Historians still argue about how many firebases like Phoenix were truly strategic assets versus targets with microphones. You don't care about the doctrine. You care that Kip's gone, Jacoby won't stop pacing, and your fingers won't stop shaking. You write one line in the notebook that night. I'm still here, but something else isn't. And you stare at the words. For a long time. You rotate back to the jungle after Phoenix. Not that you wanted to, but Firebase Phoenix, after the attack, becomes more ghost town than outpost. Half the crew gets reassigned, the artillery gets rerouted, and Delaney mutters something about how we're too juicy a target now. So back you go, deeper into the green, wet throat of central Vietnam. Your new assignment? Trail interdiction, which is a fancy way of saying, sit in the jungle for days at a time, watch a suspected VC supply trail, and call in airstrikes or ambushes if anything moves. Sounds simple. Feels like slow motion madness. The trail is narrow, maybe 2 feet wide, but well worn, and suspiciously quiet. You and 4 others are positioned in what's generously called a listening post, but is really a mud hole covered by woven leaves and broken dreams. You're supposed to be silent, still, and unseen for up to 48 hours. You lie flat on your stomach with your rifle beside you and your face pressed into roots. Ants crawl across your helmet. Something large rustles nearby. Could be a monkey, could be a VC scout, could be your brain replaying the sounds of Phoenix on loop. You don't move. You don't blink much either. At some point, Jacoby leans over and whispers, "This is like fishing for ghosts." You nod, because he's not wrong. Time passes weird out here. You're awake for hours at a stretch, then doze in 10-minute micronaps. Delaney once said, if you dream during a micronap, it's a memory, not a dream. You don't dream anymore. You just remember sideways. On the second night, the trail comes alive. Boots. 2 sets. 3. You hear them before you see them. Soft crunches in the dirt, too deliberate to be animals. You hold your breath. A flicker. A shape. Then 5 VC soldiers pass within 20 feet of your position. AKs slung, slow moving, eyes scanning the trees but not low enough. You watch them walk straight through your kill zone. The tension in your fingers is unbearable. Delaney whispers over the radio, "Hold. No fire. Let him pass." And you do. You don't blink. Don't move. Don't breathe. Because you realize, if you can see them, they could have seen you. They didn't. This time, historians still debate whether U.S. recon teams missed more enemy movement than they caught. It's likely. The VC were masters of camouflage, patience, and motionless travel. More ghost than man. You just happen to see them. And you just happen to be still enough. The next day, you hike 4 clicks west to check another trail. Rain returns. The thick kind. You move like you're swimming through a salad. Jacoby slips and cuts his palm on a root. He curses, then laughs. This whole country's trying to eat us. You laugh too, because it is. Back at the temporary outpost, Delaney sits the squad down. We're rotating through tunnel work again, he says. Not long. Just recon. Command wants eyes on a suspected hospital site. A groan goes up. Even Hall, who rarely complains, mutters, again. You just sit still. Tunnel work, again. You thought you'd gotten away from it. But the war doesn't forget your special skills. 2 days later, you're back underground. The entrance is hidden beneath a burned-out pagoda, half covered in collapsed stone and weeds. You lower yourself slowly, one hand on the ladder, the other gripping your flashlight like a lifeline. The tunnel smells like wet clay, bat droppings, and fear. You crawl. It's tight, closer than any tunnel you've done before. Just tall enough to hunch, wide enough to scrape both shoulders. You reach a fork. Left, right. You go left. The flashlight flickers, then holds. You find a small room, maybe 6 feet across. Old stretchers, empty 4 bags, scattered papers. It was a hospital, but not recently. Still, someone was saving lives down here while people like you were trying to take them. You pocket one of the papers. Might be useful to intel. Then you hear it. Scratching. Above? No. Behind. Something in the tunnel. You spin around. Nothing. You backpedal fast, heart racing. You don't stop until daylight floods your vision again. Later, you hand the paper to an interpreter. He scans it, frowns. It's a birth record. You blink. A what? Local VC commander's wife. Gave birth in that tunnel 2 weeks ago. You just stare. You mean? Yes, he nods. They had a baby. In that hospital. You think about the ghosts you've chased. The bullets you've dodged. And now, there's a baby in the war zone. Breathing air that smells like old sweat and gunpowder. You can't process that. You go clean your rifle instead. Fringe fact. It's believed that thousands of children were born in the tunnels during the war. Some grew up knowing only darkness and whispers. A few even served as scouts when they were old enough, climbing out of the earth like myths with AKs and hollow eyes. You wonder what that baby will grow up to be. If they survive. You ask Delaney later why we're still crawling through tunnels years into the war. He shrugs. Because Charlie built an underworld, and we live on the roof. You look at the trees, think about the ghosts, and realize he's right. That night, you write in your notebook. Above ground, we see leaves. Below ground, they build futures. We bomb them. They birth children. You close the notebook gently, because the paper feels too thin for the weight of what you just wrote. You stop counting days. You used to mark them in your notebook, scratch little slashes on the back of your helmet strap. Keep a mental log. 1 week, 2 weeks, month 1, month 2. Now time folds in on itself. It's not days anymore. It's phases. Firefights. Patrols. Letters. Rumors. Night watches. Morning coffee made from powdered mud and desperation. There's a rhythm to it, if you can call it that. It goes boredom, tension, terror, relief, guilt. Then start again. You've been reassigned once more, this time to escort a South Vietnamese ARVN patrol deep into a contested area along the Cambodian border. A joint op. Joint ops are always strange. You've trained for months with Americans, eaten with Americans, bled with Americans. And now suddenly, you're in a convoy with men who speak a different language, follow different rituals, and march with a different cadence. You try to bridge it. You learn to say Xin Chow, hello, and Come on, thank you. They smile politely, but there's distance. You can feel it. Not mistrust, just wariness. As if you're two parts of the same machine that don't quite fit, but still need to grind forward together. One ARVN soldier, Min, stands out. Not the same Min from your old base. This one's younger. Maybe 19, same as you. He doesn't speak English well, but he draws pictures in a small sketchbook during breaks. You peek once. There's a drawing of a bird trapped in a net, its wings open. You point at it. Min just says Jia Din. Family. You nod, not fully understanding, but feeling something in your chest tighten. You give him half a pack of gum. He gives you a pressed flower between 2 pages of newspaper. You don't know the flower's name. You tuck it into your notebook anyway. A small kindness, pressed between smoke and shell casings. Your mission with the ARVN unit is to sweep a suspected infiltration route that runs between two hills near the border. Intelligence says VC units are crossing through at night, using false clearings and tunnel hatches disguised as termite mounds. You hike for hours, days maybe. You lose track. You sleep beneath rubber trees and wake to the sound of bugs the size of matchboxes. You eat boiled eggs that taste like damp socks and rice balls wrapped in banana leaves. It's not glamorous. It's survival. Then, one night, something happens. Your group splits into two teams, yours and Min's. You're covering the northern ridge. Standard watch duty. Nothing unusual. Until just past midnight, the radio crackles. Gunfire. Short burst. Then silence. Then Min's voice, urgent, terrified, clipped Vietnamese that your translator doesn't catch fast enough. Delaney's eyes go hard. We're going. You find them 20 minutes later, half a click down the slope. Two ARVN soldiers are down. One's already gone. The other's barely breathing. Min is kneeling beside him, shirt soaked in blood, eyes wide and hollow. He sees you and says just one word. Trap. Turns out, the patrol walked through an area recently swept by B-52 bombers, a crater field laced with new mines planted by the VC to catch cleanup crews. They did. The survivor is lifted out by chopper the next morning. Min stays quiet. You sit next to him, offer a cigarette. He doesn't take it. Instead, he opens his sketchbook. You expect another drawing, but instead he tears out a page. Gives it to you. It's that bird again, still trapped, but this time there's fire in the background. And underneath it, in shaky English, no sky in war. You keep that page in your helmet. Historians still argue whether ARVN forces were unfairly judged by U.S. troops and media. Some claim they were undertrained. Others say they were brave and overused. The truth is probably both. Soldiers are soldiers. Fear smells the same in any language. You saw that in Min's eyes. 2 days later, Min is killed by sniper fire. No warning. One shot. Clean. You're 20 feet away. He doesn't cry out. Just drops like the jungle pulled a string. Delaney dives, returns fire. Everyone scrambles. No enemy found. You drag Min's body to a covered pit and stay with him till the medevac comes. Nobody talks. Later that night, Delaney hands you Min's sketchbook. You were closest, he says. You take it. You don't open it for hours. When you finally do, you find the last page is blank. Just a smudge of dirt where a pencil might have once scratched. You trace it with your finger. It's the only thing that feels real. Fringe fact, some U.S. soldiers would collect enemy dog tags, sketchbooks, trinkets, or even letters. Some out of curiosity, some out of ritual, others out of guilt. A way of saying, I saw you. You existed. I remember. You don't plan to forget Min. Ever. Back at the base, you show Jacoby the drawing. He doesn't say anything, just nods, then hand you a tiny Zippo lighter with the words, No Sky in War, scratched on the side. You don't ask when he did it. You just take it and light your next cigarette with it. Slowly, silently, you write in your notebook. His hands drew better than mine ever could. His silence said more than our radios. He died before I could ask his real name. You close it and sit there for a while, listening to the jungle breathe and wondering how many names this war will steal before it's done. The first time you hear the word rotation, you think it's a joke. Rotation? Like spinning? Is this some gallows humor about patrol shifts again? Then Delaney repeats it. Slower. Clearer. You're being rotated out. Back to base. Home. You blink. Home. He nods. Stateside. You feel like you just got hit with a rubber bullet. Not pain, just confusion. Because for the first time in what feels like years, someone just opened a door that you forgot even existed. The orders come through 2 days later. Your Darrow's date estimated return from overseas, is officially logged. There's paperwork, medical checks, gear inventory, psych evals, though you're not sure how anyone passes those. It feels surreal, like planning a vacation from purgatory. You sit in your hooch, looking at your boots, and try to imagine them walking somewhere that isn't Vietnam. You can't. Jacoby claps your back. You lucky punk. You laugh. Don't curse me, man. Delaney hands you a flask. Drink it. It's not whiskey, but it'll burn like one. You take a swig. It does. Your last mission is symbolic, One final patrol along the perimeter. Nothing major, just a loop around familiar territory. The same cracked rocks, the same leaning trees, the same haunted silence. You walk it slowly, carefully. Every rustle in the leaves reminds you this isn't over yet, because there's a phrase whispered among the grunts. The war always takes its last bite, and no one wants to be the guy who dies on the way out. You return to base, in one piece. Barely. Your bag is packed. Your M16 turned in. Your boots double knotted for the last time. You stand in line with other men who look like shadows of themselves. Some are joking. Some are pacing. One guy is crying silently, holding a folded-up letter. You hear a chopper before you see it, and when it lands, the noise rattles your ribs. Feels like it always has, except now, it's taking you away. You climb in, strap up, look down as the ground pulls away. The jungle recedes like a dark ocean, folding into itself. And for the first time, you see sky. Wide, open, empty. Back in Saigon, you're herded through a maze of offices, briefings, and immunizations. The exit process feels like being deprogrammed. Like someone is trying to scrape the jungle off your soul with a clipboard and a checklist. A doctor asks how you're sleeping. You say fine. He marks a box. A sergeant asks if you've used narcotics. You lie. He doesn't look up. The plane smells like recycled air and anticipation. You sit by the window. The guy next to you is missing 2 fingers. The one across the aisle keeps fingering a rosary. You don't talk. You just listen. To the engines. To the silence behind your eyes. The flight is long. You dream halfway through. Not of home, but of tunnels. Dark. Endless. Then the captain says you're landing in California. Just like that. You look out the window and see cars, not tanks. Billboards, not jungle vines. People walking casually down sidewalks like the world was never on fire. It's jarring, beautiful, terrifying. Customs asks if you have any contraband. You point to your notebook. That depends on your definition. They wave you through. There's a processing center. You get new clothes. Your uniform is taken and replaced with civvies that feel like costumes. You look in a mirror and barely recognize yourself. Short hair, tired eyes, sunken cheeks. You adjust the collar and try a smile. It doesn't fit yet. Outside, there's a taxi line. Someone's holding a cardboard sign with your name on it. A government transport van. Cold air conditioning. A driver who says nothing. You see trees, tall ones in lines, no snipers behind them. You smell hot dogs, car exhaust, soap. You hear radio music. Not bombs. Home isn't a grand reunion. It's just your street. Your house. Your mother standing on the porch, hands covering her mouth, eyes wet but trying to stay strong. Your little brother bolts out the door. He stops, sees you, whispers, you look different. You nod. You grew. He runs to you anyway, and hugs you like you're real. That night, you sleep in your old bed. Sheets, pillows, silence. It's the quiet that gets you. Too quiet. You keep expecting a mortar, or Jacoby to snore, or Min to sketch something in the dark. But it's just you, and the ceiling, and the creak of the house adjusting to your presence. You unpack your notebook, flip to the back, and write one last entry. I walk through fire and shadow. Carry ghosts in my helmet. I am home, but not all of me made it. Wind down, 300 words. You lie there in the stillness, hearing only the soft hum of your ceiling fan and the quiet breathing of your brother across the hallway. The world outside is asleep. The war, at least for now, is behind you, but its imprint remains, etched in a muscle memory, soaked into your dreams, folded into every heartbeat. You shift on a mattress, listening to the familiar creak of the bed springs, the faint rustle of leaves outside the window. They sound different now, no longer like danger, just wind. It's strange how fast you forget the intensity and how slowly you remember peace. You close your eyes, not because you want to sleep, but because you finally can. You feel the weight of your body settle into the bed like a stone sinking gently into a calm river. The images flicker. Min's sketchbook, Jacoby's laugh, Kip's humming, the flashlight in the tunnels, the soft drizzle of the monsoon. You let them pass, like shadows moving behind a curtain, acknowledged, respected, but not chased. You are not the same. You are not broken either. Just changed. The ceiling fan spins on. The room cools. Your breathing slows. You're home. You're here. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow you'll believe that's true. Now close your eyes. Let the skies stretch wide above you. Let the earth hold you like a promise. Let the ghosts rest just for tonight. Sleep well. You made it.